Welcome to another insightful episode of the Contractor Business Builder podcast. Today we've got Kyle Hunt. So I want you to picture two different remodelers doing the same revenue. One is, booked out solid, they've got jobs, but panicking, working crazy nights, weekends, constantly putting out fires. The other one, calmer, is profitable, got boundaries in his business with his clients and his staff. Same market, same craft, different operating system. So today, Kyle Hunt is going to break down what separates these two remodelers and what you can install in your company to get there. So welcome here, Kyle. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Before we click the record button, you said, "How's your week been?" And I paused because when people say, "Hi, how you doing?" I usually don't say, "Good. How are you doing?" I usually like to think about it, which I would encourage anybody listening to this. Don't be so quick to just give the pat answer. Like actually think when somebody says it. And when I did that, I was like, you know what, Eric, it's actually been a good week, and here's why. And we talked about that. So I did answer your question. Yeah, good. Today's good, but I wanted to add that context. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Definitely. Yeah, it's so easy to just say, everything's good or it's fine, right? And not really be able to talk about a conversation. But, so many people have gone through or going through similar things to yourself and are
Yeah.
really actually interested in what you're doing, not just, a good or fine. So,
And just being real, right? Just being real and
yeah,
honest is a good approach.
now more than ever, people are really craving that authenticity
Yes.
and human connection, right? We're all stuck on our phones or on the computer or whatever, right? So owners on the or remodelers on the rise. You're the owner of that company, and what was your biggest like aha moment? I think it was 2008 when you
Yeah.
you stepped out and started helping remodelers. What was the decision there, the lead up to that
I had worked
purpose?
for a remodeling company, kind of handling their marketing and advertising and managing their showroom and their four designers. Got involved on the financial side of the business. So, kind of the aha moment as far as why I wanted to start my business is I've always just been bent towards being an entrepreneur, just from growing up. And my first business was doing some website hosting and design, and I started buying and selling baseball cards online. Just did a lot of different things like that. And in 2008, I turned to my wife and I said, "Honey, we got one kid, another one on the way. It's a crappy economy here in Michigan, 2008, 2009. We got no money in the bank to fall back on, and I want to quit my job, start my own business." To which, of course, she said, "What, Derek?"
Are you crazy?
Yeah, kind of like that. I think she's kind of revisionist history did a little bit. To her credit, though, she's like, "No, no, no. I knew he was going to be entrepreneurial." So I've always been bent towards the entrepreneur side, and in particular, really shortly after I started my business, I said, "You know what? I'm going to put my flag in the ground." I love the remodeling industry. It is full of a lot of wonderful people. There's also some knuckleheads in there, but that's just part of the industry. But it's the great majority is full of hardworking, want to do right by the client, want to perform the work well and deliver a great service people. And that level of excellence that remodelers have as far as building the project, as far as doing it and delivering the result and knowing how to do that's high. As far as the business side and figuring out how to market and sell and build a team and lead a team and understand how all of the financials come together, there's usually a gap between your skill at doing the work and delivering it and where your business skills are. And for me, I'm like, man, I could help people improve and bring up their business skills up to their level of construction skills. And that's been what I've been doing for almost 18 years.
Yeah, love the distinction there where a lot of remodelers, you're great at what you do because you've gone through that trial and error, you've made the mistakes, you've been mentored or apprenticed by somebody in the industry typically, and that's why you're good at what you do. But the
Hmm.
business side of things, often there's a disconnect there. Like myself, I didn't go to, business school or have a specific person that really told me exactly how to run a business. And there's a lot of mistakes and even just gray areas where you're not sure about things. So, can you speak to some of those key skills that you see kind of a deficiency for remodelers or in the business where they need to kind of level up or get some
Yeah.
get some guidance in?
Early on, all roads point back to financials, to numbers, numbers, numbers. Whether, Derek, you do business coaching for remodelers and builders, similar to me. There's a lot of coaches, consultants out there over the years. All of us, in a lot of ways, are saying the same thing. And we're saying something that a lot of you listening already know to be the case. I have got to have a handle on my numbers. I need to understand my profit and loss statement. My profit and loss statement needs to be organized properly. I got my revenue coming in. Cost of goods sold equals gross profit. I need to understand what gross profit means. I need to calculate my gross profit margin. I need to know that and distinguish between markup and margin. I need to be solid with my estimating. Job costing. Oh, baby, job costing. I need to dial in and understand what I'm expecting my cost to be on the project and in all the different areas and what the actually came in at. If I can on projects know my job costing expected and actual, I become a better estimator because I recognize I went 10 hours over on demo. I need to adjust that next time. I become a better project manager because I'm going to lead my team and my trade partners. They're not subcontractors, by the way. They're trade partners. I need to lead them better. I become a better salesperson because I know and I'm more confident in I need to charge this amount of markup and margin on this project in order for everything to come to place. So many of the hundreds of remodelers I've had the privilege of working with and interacting with, it really starts with that foundation of you need to know your numbers and be confident in that. When that foundation is built, your ability to hire people becomes so much better. Your ability to invest dollars in marketing becomes less risky and easier. Your ability to learn and practice and improve your sales process becomes so much better. So that's probably the most common thing, and I'm guessing you probably experience that too and see that a lot.
Definitely, it's an area that needs improvement for a lot of remodelers, not just on the organization and systems side, but also just in the knowledge side of things. Is I think every remodeler's been there where they get to an end of a project or time of the year, and it's like, am I making any money? Like if you're unsure, then there's definitely a disconnect, and you need to go tighten up your numbers and get some guidance or some knowledge there.
Yeah. Now, even
Now,
even going back to what you opened with, picture two remodelers, same revenue, $1 million of revenue coming in. You said one's booked out, but is panicking, is working nights and weekends, constant fires. The other is calmer, profitable, has boundaries. The biggest difference between those two is their understanding and clarity and confidence in financials. The panicking, working nights and weekends, I bet you they're not charging enough. That person's not watching the job costing. They're estimating very poorly, and things are coming in a lot higher than normal. They're not getting a fixed price from their plumber. They're just putting a number in for plumbing. They get the price from the plumber, or the actual invoice from the plumber, and it's $1,000 more than what they're expecting. The calmer, profitable, have boundaries remodeler also is doing more and more work up front before a hammer hits the job site. There's a design in place. There is a detailed scope of work. There are selections that are made before the project starts, which leads to the project going smoother, less fires, stays on budget, stays on schedule. The number side is the biggest difference, not the only difference, but the biggest difference between the one and the other.
yeah, definitely. And the numbers often stem from, marketing, branding,
Mm,
estimating. That's sort of where the profitability gets set. And then, as you mentioned, the efficiency of the project is really determined in the pre-planning. Like so much of the business is hinging, and it's important to have that beginning process of lead gen to estimating to pre-construction.
hmm
Yet that's often where there's this vicious cycle of contractors who, maybe are short on funds or don't have great financials in place, needing to kind of rush into the next project or sell the next client, and they underbid or undersell, or they end up, putting out a lot of estimates out there, and they get the clients that or the jobs that they've underbid or that maybe aren't willing to pay as much. Can you talk a bit to those early stages of what should happen kind of in the marketing and estimating to ensure that the business can have strong financials and profits?
I mean, what you're describing there, and there's probably a decent number of people who are in that stage or are trying to get out of that stage of I am still swinging the hammer pretty much full time. I've started to get maybe a little bit of help in the field around me. I've started to sub out and get some trade partners for the tile work or the drywall work. I'm starting to move in that direction, but I'm swinging the hammer, and then I take a break at 3 o'clock and do a sales call. I put together kind of a basics, kind of crappy estimate with a lot of missing things or a lot of not detailed and a lot of allowances, and I'm sending an invoice in the evening and I'm following up. A lot of people that are listening to this probably either have lived there or are living there. And how do we get out of it? How do we move out of that section? I'm telling you, and this isn't, let me have a hypothesis of how we can get out of this. These are experiences. Number one, you need to be sick of it. You need to say, this is not working. I'm working my face off. How can I build? Look at all of these people that have kind of made it through that stage into other stages. Not that we have to compare ourselves or build them up on a pedestal, because guess what? They've got plenty of issues in their business. They might be up to debt in their eyeballs. You don't know their story. Comparison can be helpful. It can also be the thief of joy, as old Benjamin Franklin said. But one, you got to kind of be sick of it. I'm tired of doing this. It's not working. What needs to change? And then shut your mouth. What needs to change? And then shut it. And then say, okay, I need to seek out the answer to that. I need to go on ChatGPT and start searching on there. I need to go into YouTube and watch some videos from Derek. I need to go listen to this Kyle guy. He's put out 376 episode of the Remodelers on the Rise podcast, and I need to find some stuff related to financials or the stages in a business, and I need to listen to that, and I need to approach it with fresh eyes and a fresh attitude. Not from a defeated attitude that, you know what, I've tried this before, it doesn't work. I could never charge that amount. I don't like, you're going to be sitting in this stage for a long time if you've got a piss poor attitude about it. I'm sorry I'm cussing so much, Derek. I'm just being very direct.
Hey, passionate. That's wonderful.
You're like, piss poor is a cuss word? It kind of is to me. That's about as violent as I get. So that's part of it. And then frankly, it goes back to the numbers. You need to, on that project, figure out what you need to charge in order to kick out some decent, solid gross profit. Then after you pay your overhead expenses, net profit, so that you can get some breathing room. Until you have some good, solid gross profit and net profit, you're not going to be able to hire that person for 15 hours a week to help you in the office. You're not going to be able to start to bring on a kind of a 1099 assistant type position to help you produce a little bit more. You've got to make sure even at the smaller stages of your business that you're turning a profit, and you can absolutely do it. You got to be sick of it, and you got to dig into solutions, and it starts with the financials. And a lot of people that are in that, they would rate themselves 2 out of 10 on financials, 1 being pitiful, 10 being amazing. They'd say, I'm probably a 2. It's confusing, Kyle. I don't understand it. You can go from a 2 to a 6, a 2 to a 7 quickly. I'm telling you, you can. And when you get it up to 6 or 7, or that's a teenager thing. Is that up in Canada, by the way, that 6, 7 thing? Or is that just an
I think it's
American thing?
everywhere. Well,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think it's done here as of March 2026, but you get that up to a 6 or a 7, and all of a sudden light bulbs are going to be going off. So that's kind of my answer to that, passionate answer to that.
Love it. Definitely. And financials is one of the easier things that you can fix. You're not having to restructure the business or hire a bunch of people. It's really just hunker down, get some help, learn some, financial management and start to implement. Now, we've talked about financials, the money side of the business, very important. That kind of early stage remodeler, as you mentioned, who's maybe getting off the tools or building out a team. What about the guys more experienced? They've been in this for a while. They're probably doing a couple mil possibly of
Yep.
revenue. They've got a small team. They're not in the tools or in the weeds, so to say, but they're successful. They're making money, but they're just busy all the time. Still very much kind of a bottleneck as far as large fires go with clients or some of the bigger decisions of the business.
Yeah.
How do they start to carve back some of their time and delegate and kind of get out of the kind of even project man? They're probably in the project manager or maybe a little bit senior management roles, but still very involved with the entire business.
Yeah.
How do they kind of reignite some passion for themselves? And maybe they've been in this 10, 15 years. It's kind of like a mundane
Mm,
everyday making money, but could be better kind of thing. How would you help that remodeler kind of level up or get their time back?
I like that. I like that. I'm putting myself in that person's shoes for a second. And so you especially got me when you mentioned, kind of reignite the passion a little bit. They're kind of just going through the motions. It's been this way for a while. It's fine. It could be better. What I would say is write out what your 5-year vision for your business is. Some people do 3, some people do 10, some people do, go way out there. What's your dream? No, no, no. Just give me 5 years out. What does that look like? What are you going to be doing less of in your business? What do you want to be doing outside of work that would be fulfilling to you? Tell me kind of what you think the revenue and the team size is. Like, paint that picture. And 5 years is nice because you can't immediately go into how do I do this mode. No, no, no. Give me that vision. Give me that 5-year vision. I have found for myself and for a lot of my clients that if you can get real clear with a 5-year vision and it's something that you're excited about and it's something that's a little bit of a stretch, but that you think, you know what, that's something I should be shooting for. When you come back into the here and now and you look at 2026, or even you look at the second quarter of 2026, what do I need to be doing in this upcoming quarter to move towards that 5-year vision? I have seen that reignite and get people fired up quite a bit. So that's one way you can approach it. And hopefully that resonated with some people. The nearer term, like, I don't know, I'm kind of overwhelmed, I'm bottleneck, I'm feeling stuck, is let's do a little exercise for the next couple weeks and really list out what you are spending your time doing. Or make a little bar, or make a little pie chart and divide out what percent of your time is estimating, what time percent of your time is project management, what percentage of your time is this. And in a year from now, that'd be another way of looking at it. A year from now, or even 6 months from now, how do you want that division of things you're doing to look different? Maybe you want to do a lot less project management so that you can do the following. Have a little less time that you're working in the business, whatever. Well, if that's the case, and you already have a project manager that's kind of sort of doing okay, or a lead carpenter, now we can get real specific. How do I empower those people? How do I train those people? How do I lead those people better to take on more responsibility? That would be another way to do it. Another way is you need to stop sticking your nose in things so much. Set up structures to allow your team to do what they do and take on that responsibility and stop micromanaging. That might be the answer. You're hearing multiple ways. I'd have to hear the exact person and what they're stuck with and why they're not passionate. But those are three kind of areas that I start poking at to figure out like what's the issue here. Here's the other thing. Maybe it's because your marriage is a mess that you're feeling miserable at work. How about you don't do anything related to fix your business and you go put that focus and vigor and love and energy towards making your home life better and watch how that has a direct correlation to you enjoying your work more. Another one, shut your stinking laptop. It's 5 o'clock, be done for the day. The work will be there tomorrow. Set up a boundary. Go read a book tonight. Go for a walk tonight. Go hit some balls at the driving range. Go fishing. Go take your spouse on a date. Whatever kind of fills your bucket a little bit, stop working so much. Set some boundaries there. There's some ideas for you, Derek.
Lots of avenues. And as you mentioned, the specific person or business, the strategy or the advice may be a bit different there. I like the last things that you mentioned there with if your passion is missing or you're feeling, gray about your business, it's probably more to do, could be with your personal life. And
Hmm.
you've just been kind of sapping the energy out of yourself, working crazy hours or putting all your focus on your business when you need to start focusing on yourself, your family, life outside the
Yeah.
business, and have some of those boundaries to shut off, say, as important as this may seem, your life is more important, and making sure that you're enjoying it is at the end of
Yes.
the day what it's about.
Yeah, success at business, success in business, and making $400,000 of owner compensation and good benefits and all that fun stuff is not does can't should not ought not come at the expense of not being present as a spouse, or if you're not married, just being a good family member, a good friend to people, enjoying your hobbies that you enjoy, enjoying your faith life, enjoying investing in your kids' lives, whatever the case is for you. We need to make sure business has a way of getting its little fangs into so much of your time and your mental space and all of that. And we need to guard against that as business owners. Because I've been in
Mhm.
business 18 years. I haven't found the end of my to-do list yet, Derek.
Yeah, it always seems to get longer, and when you do find the end of it, you just find more stuff to put on it.
That's
So,
right. Which is fun.
uh,
That's part of what's fun. But as long as that
mhm.
doesn't overwhelm us, and it ought not.
Yeah, and make sure that your happiness or enjoyment isn't contingent on some future goal, like, when I reach X revenue, then I can take a vacation or take a day off or whatever, right?
Yep.
It's good to have some rewards, but when you're always kind of just pushing yourself in the moment to reach some outcome, when that outcome comes, you're going to continue to push yourself because you've developed these habits and this mindset essentially.
Mm.
of where you're at now. Taking a little step back there, you mentioned about your team and not being so involved with maybe the minute details or small nitty-gritty stuff in the business. Can you talk about that where maybe an owner has been very involved? They know they need to step back, stop micromanaging, but when they do, they just have more fires to put out, or the numbers seem to take a dive, or whatever the reason. How can owners do those handoffs or create the environment where they know work is going to be getting done properly, or their people can handle the
Yeah.
responsibilities that they're giving?
Yeah, there's just there's a difference between still leading and managing your team. We're absolutely not saying, "Hey, just go ride on a boat all day and do whatever." Remember when we talked about work-life balance? It means you're not going to work. No, that's not what we're talking about. There's a difference between leading and managing your team. Let's say a project manager as an example. A project manager that is, we get through the design and project development and the sales process. We sign the project. It's a nice $100,000 kitchen project. And we are now handing that off to our project manager who's going to manage the schedule, manage the budget, manage change orders, manage the client interaction, line up our in-house team and our trade partners. Like that's that person's job. And they might be managing a couple of those projects at the same time. How do we manage and lead them well? And not, hey, have you done this? Hey, what about this? Hey, I'll go ahead and take care of that, John. I'll just go ahead and do that of the micromanage part. One is you need to have an organized cadence of regular, let's say in this case, production meetings once a week. It has an agenda. People come prepared for it. Another good way of doing it is that project manager has a couple KPIs, key performance indicators. That project manager, for the 4 projects they're managing, they have a thing that says 2 week look ahead, 2 week look ahead updated question mark. And for each of those projects, it's either a yes or a no. And that yes carries some weight. That yes means you've actually updated the 2 week look ahead. You have thought through the in-house labor. You have notified trade partners if they're needed or if anything's adjusted. You have considered what kind of material we need to make sure is lined up and make sure is there. Like that yes carries some weight. And if that says no, that gives me as a manager saying, hey, I see the Smith project doesn't have the 2 week look ahead updated. Tell me about that. Just didn't have time to get it done before the meeting. It's a priority for this afternoon. Excellent. Let me know when that's set, or if you get stuck on anything, appreciate it. That conversation is much more organized. So I'm just kind of giving a couple examples of what
Mhm.
that could look like of leading with structured, organized, consistent meetings. That is something I see inconsistent, not structured, wild meetings where we get stuck on something and spend 30 minutes on it and it's like, oh, we are not doing this right. And also KPIs are a really effective way to give that project manager or a designer or an office manager, let them kind of know how this is what's valuable. A good KPI means if I'm doing these KPIs, the result that we're looking for of delivering this project to a happy client on time and on schedule is going to happen. So if I manage against those KPIs, good things will be happening downstream as a result of it. And I think a lot of times we're just not thoughtful with some of that basic management and leading. And those are some examples that hopefully
Mhm.
kind of ring a bell or give some light bulb moments for people listening.
Definitely. I kind of felt there's two components that you mentioned there where having some structure in place. So the project manager in this example knows what to do, knows what's important, and there's lines of communication. And then the leadership of the owner to put that system in place, follow up with the project manager, and be that support for them essentially so they can take the ball, run with it.
Yeah.
And they know what those KPIs are, those indicators of success essentially
Yes.
in their role of the business.
Yes, absolutely. A couple other things. One is sit down with that team member that you're wanting to take on more responsibility and say something like, I need to stop being so involved in fill in the blank. First of all, they're going to go, thank you. Let me do my job. There's a little bit of that they might be thinking or saying. And I'm going to need your help with that. I'm going to try to kind of ease off it. But at the same time, I'm going to need some clarity on my end to know that it's happening so that I can really let go of it. So we're going to be doing this weekly meeting. We're going to be doing these KPIs. The other thing to kind of keep in mind is when you're training somebody, you don't just show it to them and then it's done and you consider it done. That's why things get clunky. No, no, no. When we train, we kind of go around the circle, and the speed at which we go around the circle depends, but we go around the circle of, all right, I do, you watch, I do, you help, you do, I help, and then you do, and I go relax or, or whatever the case is, right? But like you're fully in charge of it. So when we're delegating things, I think we speed through that too often, or we do one little training and we're like, why aren't they doing it? That's just bad leadership. It takes some of these things take time. You need to manage the process. You need to remind them of the process. You need to praise them when they're doing aspects of the process so they're like, "Oh right, we are following this new process more." You need to evaluate the process consistently to see if it's too clunky, if there's things we're doing that's overkill. That's leading, that's managing. As you grow your business, here's the other thing of that person that's kind of stalled out in their business, but things are going well and they've got a team. You need to change your mindset from whatever you've had in your mindset to I am a leader. I'm a leader. Holy cow. I miss swinging the hammer. I miss doing this. I miss being project manager. You know what? I've built my business up. More of my job is now managing my team. And as soon as you flip the switch on that and go, that's my job now, you start reading leadership books. You start learning how to manage meetings more effectively. You learn how to praise people. You learn how to hold people accountable. As soon as you start to do more of that, the team starts to take off. The business gets a little more passion. But I see people resist that a lot.
Yeah, I find the strength of a business and the kind of level that you can rise in a business is directly tied to the leadership of the owner as well as the team. Like you are
Yep.
essentially leading leaders. Your project manager, yes, they're managing, but they are a leader to the people, the trade partners, as you mentioned, the field crew, the other various members of the company that they have to deal with and work together with. And so if you, I guess, aren't at a certain level of leadership, it's hard to train your people to also be leaders and to have that flow through your company. I think that's definitely where some of the magic happens
Yes.
when a company is really operating
Yeah.
on a high level. Now, speaking of leadership and training, and I think training is a missed opportunity for a lot of contractors where, especially a little old school, it's kind of like throw them in the swimming pool, see if they swim, and hope for the best,
Hmm.
swing your arms. Having good onboarding training just really sets the stage and sets people up for success and will make, yes, it takes more time, as you mentioned, in the short term, but in the long term, you're really putting key people in place with the right training, essentially, the right knowledge to be able to do their
Yes.
job effectively. Where I'm going with this is you have peer groups with remodelers. Can you talk about what kind of the benefits of the peer group are? Who's a good fit for those? How leadership comes about and people make progress inside
Yeah.
of a peer environment?
Yeah, a lot of people who've worked with remodelers on the rise, either we've done some one-on-one coaching and they kind of move into peer groups after that, or they're part of something called the VIP Club, which is kind of built for companies that are 1.5 million and below in revenue and really getting that financial and marketing and sales and leadership foundation in place. The peer groups, we have 5 different peer groups with 9 or 10 companies in each. And as an example, on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, there's going to be 9 business owners coming here to Michigan, one of my peer groups, and we're going to spend 2.5 days of doing kind of a retreat. Everybody's coming with their hot seat, their most pressing thing they're trying to work on. Everybody has submitted their report to peers, all of their financials, their cash flow side of things, their owner comp, their backlog of signed work, their marketing metrics, their leadership challenges, and we've got that all printed out. They're reviewing it. What ends up happening is when you are around like-minded business owners, you recognize, oh, I'm not the only one having this issue. Running a business is lonely sometimes. So getting coaching, getting help from, somebody like you, Derek, of even one-on-one coaching or going through courses, getting involved in Remodelers on the Rise and then peer groups. Just that encouragement and like, well, if they're doing it, I can do it. Or feeling like, I could pick up the phone and call 8 other remodelers around the country because I'm stuck on this. And I know that so and so has already done this or handled this or has a form for this or has a process for that. It just speeds peer groups and coaching. It speeds up your clarity of what you need to do, and it speeds up the time it takes to get these improvements that you desperately need in your business in place. It speeds that up. Something that if you're trying to figure it out on your own might take 5 years, all of a sudden within a year you've got that in place, and it's helping you be more efficient or productive or profitable or help you generate more leads or help you close more sales. So that's where kind of the magic of coaching in general really comes into form. You've probably seen that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no need to reinvent the wheel. There's, lots of people that have done this, and it's another, part of leadership, if you will. You don't have to do everything yourself. The lone wolf in business is not really a thing. Business is a team sport, and the better and more involved people you can have on your team, the better you're gonna do. Can you share with us a success story of somebody you've either coached one-on-one or has been in the peer group, kind of where they started, some of the key things you guys worked on or implemented, and
Mm.
how that translated into, the improvement of their business?
Yeah. I've gotten that call, I've gotten that question over the years, and it's interesting because I think a lot of people, when you ask that question, I think what people expect to hear is a story around revenue growth, around profits, around the money side. And there's certainly that. There's certainly people that have gone from 1 million up to 5 million in revenue, gone from crappy gross profit and net profit up to 20% total owner compensation of, between salary and net profit. And you could do the math on a $4 million company at 20%, it's a good number. So there's certainly that. But you need to know the whole story in order to know that. What if that person is working their face off so much that it's screwed up their personal life? Building a growing business is not for the faint of heart. It's hard work. So when I answer that question, I usually think of a little bit more micro stories, like a guy like Stu Kavner with Innovative Builders and Remodelers in Rockford, Michigan. I remember early on working with him, and in particular on their sales process. And him going, I'm like, all right, so when are you meeting with people? Well, I take a lot of evening appointments. Like people just want to meet in the evening at 6 o'clock because they're both working during the day. So I end up doing that. And well, how's that working? You got two little kids, right? Yeah. What was your wife think of that? And he's like, it's not really good. And I said, what if I told you you need to stop doing that? Well, I can't. I need to do that. All right, let's try this, Stu. One night a week you do that. Instead of these 3 nights that you're doing, one night a week you do that. What day of the week is going to work best for you guys? Tuesday nights. Okay, Tuesday nights. You do that on Tuesday nights. Other than that, you do not do that. And start offering your clients when they say, well, when can you meet? You can say, I do one evening appointment every Tuesday. My next 3 Tuesdays are booked. I can also do, 8 a.m. on multiple days, and I can also do a 3:30 meeting on multiple days and see what happens. And what happens is people respect that boundary, talking about boundaries, and they start to say, we can make the 3:30 work on Thursday. We can both kind of be home a little bit early for that. I work from home already. My husband will come home or whatever the case is. And like that's a small goal that he implemented, confidence built, it started working. And wouldn't you know it, a small sales adjustment and improvement improved his home life and how he felt as a dad and how he felt as a husband. That to me is the be all end all 18 years of coaching result. That is a micro example of what I go to, right? I spent an hour yesterday one-on-one coaching, and there's plenty to talk about their production side, this and that. All we talked about the whole time was their marriage. And I'm kind of a part-time marriage counselor, I call myself, because I've worked with a lot of husband-wife teams. His name and his wife is actually, I hope they're not listening to this, is at a HBA thing, a women's HBA thing. And I said, let's shock the world. I want you to, what do you think of having flowers delivered to her hotel? So when she comes back, there's a note and a flower delivery from you. He's like, what's the logistics of that? I could think of that. I said, like, DoorDash. It doesn't have to be fancy, this and that. He texts me
Mhm.
this morning. He goes, I executed it. First of all, she said, was this a Kyle idea? And I said, well, whatever. It is what it is. And he's like, I think she really appreciated it. I'm like, that's it, man. Just keep doing little things like that. And, the work-life balance will improve and all that. So it's stuff like that. And yes, going from a 1% or negative 1% net profit up to a 10% net profit is life-changing. Figuring out how to improve your gross profit and charge more and go from 25% up to 35% gross profit so you can hire a full-time office person, so you can hire your first project manager, life-changing. There's all kinds of that. But bottom line, get your numbers in order. Start being profitable. Figure out how to do that. Build your confidence through that. Build your encouragement through that, your clarity through that. And running a successful remodeling business, there is not a magic bullet. It is a combination of a lot of little things. And that is annoying slash really empowering. It is about stacking little things after little things after little improvements. And you do that week in, week out, month in, month out, year in, year out. You are going to be a totally different business person and business owner and have a totally different business a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later. Also, pat yourself on the back, Derek. Pat yourself on the back, Kyle. You're better than you were 2 years ago. You've improved a lot. I know things are still clunky. Whoever's listening to this, I know things are clunky. I know you wish you were further, but you're a lot further ahead than you were 2 years ago, right? If not, then that should get your attention. But most of you go, no, we have improved that process. I have gotten better at that. I am a better salesperson. I still have a long way to go in knowing my numbers, but I'm better at that. Pat yourself on the back a little bit. Stop focusing on the negatives. Look at the positives. And maybe if you look at the positives a little bit more, that positivity might be contagious to find more positivity. All right, Derek, that's enough. Sorry.
Great message.
All
Nice and
right.
positive, and it's a balance. A lot of us don't get it right for sure in business, and sometimes it doesn't have to be complicated. These small, fixes, tweaks, as you mentioned, just changing the time that you're doing sales calls and just setting those boundaries, and you'll be surprised sometimes at the response you get from your team or your clients when you start to kind of do things the way that you want to do them, and it's your business. You can make the process, you can make the policy, you can make the book, and if the policy is you need time with your family and you're not going to be meeting or doing estimates late at nights and things like that, then follow it and set it and make the business is your creation. Essentially, you do make the rules. You are an employee of the business. You want to keep that mentality too. Can't just kind of run amok. But yeah, great message, love it. It's not, the money can be life changing, but you gotta make sure that it's a life worth changing at the end,
Ooh, I
and
like
you
that.
gotta take care of your family
Yeah.
and your marriage and all those good things. So Kyle, for those out there listening, this sounds great, but I know I need some help with this, or I want to learn more. How do they get in touch with you or your team?
Yep. Remodelers on the rise.com. Remodelers on the rise.com. That's got kind of all of our information there. If you listen to podcasts, which you must be because you're listening to this, you can just look at Remodelers on the Rise. We got a lot of those episodes out there that you can tune into. And then the other thing I would say is remodelerscommunity.com is a free Facebook group that we have with about 2,500 remodelers in there. And when you think Facebook groups, I think most people think, ugh, people just yipping and yapping at each other and being rude. Mm-mm. It's a really, really, really encouraging, very carefully curated, frankly, by us over the years of who we let in and how the tone and everything works. And it's a wonderful place to learn. So that would be something. And then if you're listening to this, August 11th, 12th, 2026, Ann Arbor, Michigan, the Rise Conference. We're doing our second annual Rise Conference. You can get a ticket and come to that.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Kyle. We will put links in the description wherever you're listening, watching this episode. So go check those out. Get in contact with Kyle and his team. Improve your remodeling business. Thanks for coming on here, Kyle, and sharing your insights and helping us all out.
Good. Thank you for having me.